Joseph Kallinger, aka the Shoemaker, was an American serial killer who murdered 3 people and tortured 4 families. He committed the later crimes with his 12-year-old son, Michael. Kallinger was born December 11, 1935, as Joseph Lee Brenner III at Northern Liberties Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to Joseph Lee Brenner Jr. and his wife, Judith. In December 1937, he was placed into foster care after his dad left his mother. On October 15, 1939, he was adopted by Austrian immigrants Stephen and Anna Kallinger. He was abused so severely by his adoptive parents that at the age of 6, he suffered a hernia inflicted by his adopted father. The punishments Kallinger endured, including kneeling on jagged rocks, being locked inside closets, consuming excrement, committing self-injury, being burned with irons, whipped with belts, and starved. When he was 9, he was sexually assaulted by a group of neighborhood boys. As a child, he often rebelled against his teachers and his adoptive parents. He dreamed of becoming a playwright and had played the part of Ebenezer Scrooge in the local YWCA's performance of A Christmas Carol in the 9th grade. When he was 15, he began dating a girl named Hilda Bergman, whom he met at a theater which he was allowed to visit on Saturdays. His parents told him not to see her, but he married her and they had 2 children together. She later left him due to domestic violence. Kallinger was later hospitalized on September 4, 1957 at St. Mary's Hospital. Due to severe headaches and loss of appetite, doctors believed it was a result of his divorce. He remarried on April 20, 1958 and had 5 children with his second wife. He was extremely abusive to his family and often inflicted the same punishments he endured as a child from his adoptive parents onto his own family. Throughout the next decade, he would spend time in and out of mental institutions, attempted suicide, and committing arson. Kallinger was arrested and imprisoned in 1972 when his children went to the police. While in jail, he scored an 82 on an IQ test and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. State psychiatrists recommended that he be supervised with his family. The children later recanted their allegations. 2 years later, one of his children, Joseph Jr., was found dead in an abandoned construction building 2 weeks after Kallinger took out a large life insurance policy on his sons. Though he claimed Joseph Jr. had run away from home, the insurance company, suspecting foul play, refused to pay out the claim. Beginning in November 1974, Kallinger and his 12-year-old son, Michael, went on a crime spree spanning Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New Jersey. Over the next 6 weeks, they robbed, assaulted, and sexually abused 4 families, gaining entrance to each house by pretending to be salesmen. On January 8, 1975, they continued their spree in Leona, New Jersey. Using a pistol and a knife, they overpowered and restrained the 3 victims. When others entered the home, they were forced to strip and bound with cords from various appliances. This culminated in the murder of 21-year-old nurse Maria Fashing, the 8th victim to arrive. When she refused to follow Kallinger's orders, he stabbed her in the neck and back. One of the residents, still bound, managed to get outside and cry for help. Neighbors saw her and called for the police. By the time they arrived, the Kallingers had fled on their getaway vehicle, the city bus, dumping their weapons and a bloody shirt along the way. Police investigated Kallinger after retrieving the bloody shirt and eyewitness testimony that he and his son had been seen in the area. They soon found out about Kallinger's history of domestic violence, Joseph Jr.'s unsolved death, and history of arson at the buildings that he owned. Him and his son were arrested on kidnapping and rape charges. He was eventually charged with 3 counts of murder, 1 for his son, 1 for the nurse, and 1 for a neighborhood boy. Kallinger pleaded insanity, claiming that God told him to kill. He was found sane and sentenced to life in prison on October 14, 1976. Michael, meanwhile, was judged to be under his father's control. He was sentenced to a reformatory. Upon his release at 21, he moved out of state and changed his name. While in prison, Kallinger made several attempts at suicide, including trying to set himself on fire. Because of his suicidal and violent behavior, he was transferred to a mental hospital in Trenton, New Jersey. He was then transferred to a mental hospital in Philadelphia, PA, on May 18, 1979. He was then confined for several years at the Fairview State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. He was initially being held at the Huntington Prison until he attacked another inmate with a razor-studded belt. He was sent to Cresson State Prison in December of 1990, where he was placed in restrictive housing.
Worried that he might kill himself, prison officials did not let him wear the standard jumpsuit. Instead, he was limited to his boxer shorts in his heated cell. After he tried to swallow a spoon, he was no longer allowed to use utensils, and he had to eat with his hands. On March 25, 1996, a doctor observed him having seizure-like symptoms. They transferred him to the prison infirmary, and when he was rechecked at 1 a.m. on March 26th, he was pronounced dead. An autopsy showed to be the cause of death was a heart attack.